Alright, so today we are going to be checking out a set of control arms. So this company reached out to me and asked me if I would make an installation video for them after watching the installation video on the control arms for my Tacoma. So this company is Skuch, I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's S-K-U-C-H. They can be found on Amazon. I don't know really much about the company, so I kind of approached it like I would anything else. Went on Amazon, looked at the reviews. They got 4.8 out of 5 stars. This particular product fits the 2003 to 2024 Toyota 4Runners. They are mandrel bent steel. They are robotically MIG welded. They have a 2-year warranty on all of the components and powder coated, and as well as a great price point at $149.99 at the time of this video. So I already opened up the box to verify I had everything. So there are some instructions in there and some foam. Set that off to the side. Nice hardware box here in the middle. Now, they come with extra snap rings and extra ball joints. So that's really neat. These ball joints are actually greasable. So also kind of a neat idea. One of the things that I had with the control arms on my truck is that the replacement ball joints. So it's nice to have spares on hand. So definitely be setting those aside for future for the customer here. Now, these are pretty beefy here. Let me take a look, bring you in closer here. So they're pretty beefy, pretty nice. There are no placards on them anywhere as far as branding, but nice big bushings. Let's see if we can't even peel one of those out of there. They are serviceable, replaceable though, the bushings, so if down the road you did need to replace them, you could just get your diameter. Pretty much any off-road shop would have those available. The ball joints themselves, castle nut there, nice and easy. So again, here is everything in the box. You have your driver and passenger side control arms, grease zerts, some assembly grease to lubricate all of the bushings and pins here, cotter pins for your castle nuts, washers for the sides here, and of course your spare ball joints. So all of this included for $149, pretty good deal. Looking at the welds, they look fine. Everything looks structurally sound. Obviously I wouldn't install these on somebody's vehicle if I didn't look at them beforehand and say, yeah, they're not complete junk, right? So they're quality from what I can tell. Something to discuss real quick is, like I said, these control arms were sent to me. I actually got 2 sets, one for a Tacoma, one for a 4Runner. They were sent to me for an installation video, not any sort of review video, or there was no discussion, anything like that about commentary, quality, anything like that. So all of those opinions are all of my own. I was not instructed to say anything. They're not sponsored, you know, as far as anything like that. It was simply, they sent me the product to make an installation video and I get to keep the product. So just wanted to clarify that. Let's go ahead and get the vehicle in the air. As I'm getting the vehicle in the air and putting it on jack stands and stuff, we'll talk a little bit about the tools that you're gonna need. All right, required tools. You're gonna need a torque wrench, some sort of hammer. This is just a small 2-pound sledgehammer, 19mm wrench, box wrench. A gear wrench will definitely make your life easier, but you are also going to need just a standard box wrench. So definitely 2 19mm wrenches, one of them being a gear wrench, make it easier. 12mm, preferably gear wrench, make your life easier. And a 3/8 open-end wrench for the grease zerts. On the subject of the grease zerts, the only issue that I ran into is that they are brass and they are very brittle. If it was me doing this again, I would probably switch them out for some steel ones, just personal preference. Long flathead screwdriver, trim clip tool, some needle nose pliers. I like to use the wrench extender, but if you can get a breaker bar in there, you can do that. You need a 10mm deep socket and a 6-inch extension, and then a breaker bar, of course. Now, the bottom ball joint bolt is a 19mm. So I use the flip sockets. I've talked about them before, and they are a 21mm on one side and a 19mm on the other. And this is the one that I use for both the through bolt and the upper ball joint bolt. So there's an option for you. Now, if you do break one of the grease zerks like I did, you can use a T15 Torx, and the little bit of the Torx will actually fit inside of the broken part of the grease zert, and it'll just spin right out of there. They're never very tight when they break off, so it's pretty easy to get them out of there. So, all right, with the vehicle in the air, supported by a jack stand, the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to remove this little clip on this castle nut here. Now, if yours looks different, the ball joints may have been changed already, that's fine. We're just gonna take this nut off. And I'll show you the easiest way to do that is to loosen it, and then we're gonna take a hammer and we're gonna hit it here and here on these sides, and then that vibration will actually knock that tension loose. So we're going to remove this nut, and we're going to remove this bolt right here, which is to release the ABS line to where it'll free it, get it out of the way so we can remove the control arm. Once this one and this one are undone, then we're going to loosen this nut right here. So this is a 19mm, this is a 10mm, and these are 19mm as well. So you'll need a open end wrench or deep socket on that side, and then a box wrench on this side, and you'll see as we get to that. As you can see, there's not a lot of tension on these. The tightness doesn't come from the nut being tightened against the knuckle. It's actually the taper of the ball joint going into the knuckle. The nut is only there to make sure that it doesn't come out. So these are only torqued down to a certain point to align the hole to get your cotter pin back in. Now, once that's loose about like that, like I said, a few taps on this side, few taps on this side, you'll notice there's kind of flat spots on either side, and you'll actually see that pop loose. See, just popped loose there. So now we can take this the rest of the way out. Now, the reason that it's under tension is because as we jack up the vehicle, this whole assembly drops down. When these are tightened, they are tightened at ride height, so that is up in position. So right now it's actually being held down on tension, so when we take this off, it's going to actually spring up, and that's why we're going to take this off first. Okay, once that's off, we just want it loose, out of the way, so it's not under tension. You can't actually put the bolt back into the factory control arm because the new one has a stud with a nut, so you're not going to need that anymore. Now, as we stated before, be careful because this is under tension. If you don't want that to just drop away, you can either put your jack stand directly under this or grab a secondary jack and put under there, which is what I'm going to do right now. Okay, now that I've got that under some tension, I can pull this out by hand. And you can see that comes up to ride height, which is its natural resting state. So again, we're not going to need this nut. The new one comes with new nuts. So I'm just going to put this back on, align it to a hole, and put the pin back through it. So when I return these to the customer, they'll have them in a good condition. Now, to break loose this nut, there is a brake line in the way over here. So I like to use just a regular box wrench. We'll get it set up here. And then this tool is a wrench extender. And what this does is this allows you, oh, we're gonna have to flip it over here. This allows you to actually use a breaker bar or torque wrench on a regular boxed end wrench. So you can see now I can get in here with my breaker bar and get leverage to break this loose. Without getting in the way of any brake lines or having to undo any of that. Now, you don't even have to use it with the breaker bar. You can use it on its own, just like you would if you used to like double wrench without putting the extra strain on the jaws of the wrench. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get this taken out. It's just this nut, and then the washer should come off, and then you can start sliding that bolt out. As you slide the bolt out, you're gonna have to keep the washer on this side up against this so that the bolt can clear the inner fender, and we'll show you when that's all apart. From the top side of the engine bay, as you look down in here, right down here is where that control arm bolt is. You can see that screwdriver sitting right on top of it. So there's two obstacles you have to get past. The first one is this little AC line. You can see it right here. That little black clip right there. And the way that you get past that is right over on this side. There's a little clip right here. Just take a real small screwdriver, stick it right down in there, and very gently pull, and you can see all of that moves. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. Just pry it real nice and easy. And then you take this nut right here off. That is a 10 millimeter, and you'll need a 6-inch extension to get down in there. So you pop that little nut right there off. And again, this is all located on the passenger side of the engine bay. So you can see again, right down in there is where we're at. There's the nut. Right down through here is where you reach your screwdriver and just pop that little clip loose. And then as you just give it a little pry, it makes enough room. Now these are your air conditioning lines, so be very careful not to bend them harshly or break them in any way. Very gentle. So here you can see a side-by-side comparison of the factory versus the aftermarket ones. And what changes is the location of this upper ball joint. So it actually moves it slightly out and slightly back, which then changes the angle of your wheel. I'll show you here. Basically just like this. So with the angle of your wheel changed, it allows the alignment shop to realign your vehicle after you get a lift and correct the caster, which is your wheel in reference like this. Camber is like this, and toe is like this. So caster is like this. These small packets of grease that you get in the box, they are to lubricate these faces as you install it, and it's a good idea to put a little bit inside of each of the holes so the bolt is lubricated as it goes through. There are little grease valleys inside of the bushings so that once you actually get it installed and install your grease zerks and fill it with grease, it will lubricate that way as well, but this is great for assembly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this all up in there and get the bolt back in it, and then I'll show you from there. This is what it should look like after you get your bolt slid back through. Now, you will see that there are extra washers in your kit. This kit is going to be the same for the Tacoma versus the 4Runner as far as the hardware is concerned. So don't be alarmed when you have extras of the flat washers. On the Tacomas, there's one on either side. On the 4Runners, there's only one on the outsides. So you'll see as the factory ones sit, there's only one on the outsides. Same thing with the aftermarket, so don't be alarmed on that. So once you get your bolt back in, just get your nut loosely reinstalled. We're going to take our castle nut off here, remove our boot protector, and then go ahead and we'll realign our spindle, get this up in there, get our castle nut started, and then we're going to torque our castle nut to 45 foot-pounds to start with, and then we're going to check for alignment in our slots to get our cotter pin through. This is supposed to be a maximum of 50 foot-pounds. Between 45 and 50 foot-pounds, you should be able to find one of those keyways to get that through there. And then last step is going to be to reattach your 10mm nut up here. These generally have a little bit of corrosion on the threads from being held while they are powder coated. So it's a good idea to put just a dab of grease on there. Don't worry about it loosening. They are nylock, so it's not going to come loose on you later, and they don't require much tension to keep them on there. So just snug those down. You don't have to really tighten them down. So once all of that is completed, we're going to put the wheel back on. We're going to set the vehicle down on the ground, and then we'll do the other side. I'll let you know if there's anything different as far as the bolt is concerned on that side. But once both sides are completed and the vehicle is down under its own weight, then we're going to reach in and torque these nuts here to 85 foot-pounds. Make sure that you are torquing this nut and not the bolt side, because this bolt on the top side here will get to tension a lot faster than this nut will. It's also a good idea to hit it until it torques, and then you can use your hands and kind of bounce the vehicle a couple of times, and then hit it until it torques again, hit it until it torques again, and you'll notice that it gets tighter. And what's going on is it's seating these bushings in their spots. Drive the vehicle around the block and torque it again, and then you should torque it one last time after about 500 miles. You do not want these coming loose on you. I've done a video where a friend of mine had that happen. Always a good idea to double check them. You could even put some thread locker on there if you wanted to, like Loctite. So let me get that all taken care of and we'll bring you back. On the driver's side, you'll see as the bolt tries to come out, it hits on the lip of the inner fender right here, just a little bit. So if you just take your flathead screwdriver that we used on the other side, you can just pry it ever so slightly and make room for that bolt to come past. Now it's a little bit of a back and forth with pulling the bolt and then pushing the washer and pulling the bolt and pushing the washer. Looks like this bracket's going to have to come out also. Single 10mm bolt right there, and we'll get that pulled out, and then that whole bolt on the driver's side should come out. As you're finishing up, don't forget to reinstall your bolt there, your 10mm here, and clip your AC line back in its plastic housing there. Now, the only other thing that I will tell you is that at this point, you're going to want to grease those grease fittings on the bottom of these bushings. Don't do that yet. You need to have the vehicle down and on a level surface with this bolt torqued before you grease any of that. So you'll grease the fitting there, the fitting under there, and then this little dust cap pops off and you can grease the ball joint there. It doesn't take very much grease, you just want to get a little bit into the system. Alright, so in order to torque the driver's side, bolt right here on the upper control arm, once the tire and everything's back on, there's a 12mm bolt right here in this little brake assembly. If you unbolt that and push it out of the way, you just got to barely move it, and then you can get your torque wrench in here and torque that to the 85 foot-pound specified. There is one clip to remove up here, And it is helpful to have a clip removal tool like this. They're easily found, Harbor Freight, Amazon, any place like that. All right, so on the passenger side, same thing, 12mm bolts. Move that brake line a little bit and you can torque your end bolt there. And then here's that greaser for your ball joint with the cap removed. So get this all greased up, put our dust cover back on, and we will be done. That's it. I hope that you enjoyed the video and that this install was easy for you. Don't forget to add your grease and retorque everything after 500 miles. Thank you for watching.